Hi, I'm Morgan.
And I'm Jake, and this is
Neverland Navigation Radio.
Where today we are taking a deep dive into one of the most imaginative attractions in the history of Imagineering. Morgan, what are we covering today?
We are covering all things Figment, I'm going to say, instead of naming 3 different rides.
Right. Good idea.
That are all similar.
Right. Yeah.
Depending on how mad you are. You might say they're not similar at all.
Yeah, exactly. Depending on how much of a purist you are for the original. Yeah, Journey into Imagination is the topic at hand today. Very controversial kind of attraction in Epcot nowadays, but definitely a fan favorite as well.
This might actually be one that unites the people in a we want the first one back.
Okay.
Don't you think that's pretty much unanimous?
Yeah.
Or a variation of the first one? I don't think anybody got to the second one and they're like, yeah. This needed to happen.
It's true. It was universally kind of, and we'll get into why, obviously, but...
You know, they say the people need an enemy.
But yes. And so the first reimagining is the enemy.
Yeah. They did that on purpose.
Well, definitely a ride that's had a bunch of ups and downs. Before we get into all of the history, though, we wanted to say thank you so much for joining us.
And upside downs.
Ooh, I like it because of the house.
Yes,
I like it.
The house is in all the variations, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. We want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
We are going to be, we upload episodes of the podcast every single week. So if you would like to subscribe to the show on the audio version, you can find us on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening. Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us a review, we would love to see you guys in the reviews of the podcast as well. And you can also find the visual version of the podcast on video form over on our YouTube channel, Neverland Navigation Co. We'd love to see you there as well.
Absolutely. And also, if you are thinking about taking a vacation, I am a free-to-you travel agent. Just send me an email at neverlandnavigationco@gmail.com and I'll give you my phone number. We can chat about your upcoming vacation. It will cost you the same as it would cost you to book it yourself online, or better. A lot of times I can find a better deal.
Yes.
And your place of travel will pay me commission, but not like add on to your cost. So to give back to you as a thank you, I give you free trip t-shirts. So this is a win-win-win-win-win.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things is when people tell you their favorite character, favorite attraction for t-shirts, and there's a lot of love for Figment out there.
Yeah.
So I think that those people will be very maybe interested in hearing some of his origins that most people probably don't know about Figment. So this might be a very interesting episode for you guys.
I definitely learned some very interesting facts.
I'm excited because this is not something I know everything about. I'm excited to hear the research because I'm sure there's going to be stuff in there I've never heard before, which I love. Also, one of our first TikToks that you guys really seemed to like was some audio that was that was trending at the time, but it was about old Figment versus new Figment. So I think this, you know how we feel about this already, but the history is actually the more interesting thing, because the original ride is so well regarded and how different the different versions are. So I'm super excited to hear what you've come up with. And then next week I've got an Epcot ride that I'm going to do as well.
Fantastic.
So it's going to be a fun couple episodes.
Yes. And this is, I mean, even though I would prefer some sort of version of the first version of this ride, this is a ride that we go on a lot. Jake likes dragging me over there to the Figment section. But yeah, but I have gotten to the point where I enjoy it, except for that one part with the smell. But I can hold
that part too.
I can hold my breath for that whole scene.
That's what we do.
That's nice. So yeah,
it's because the wait time is low.
The wait time is generally very low. We walk on.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we're always looking for something that's walk on to do.
Yes.
To fill those gaps in whatever our plans are. So Figment is always there, and
I do love that last scene.
Come on, guys, let's have fun.
Right. Let's not come here and do nothing.
Yeah, it's cute. It's cute.
That last scene I think is magical. Still,
I love that last scene.
Yeah.
There's so much depth in those like couple feet of scenic design they've got going in that last scene.
Have we told our listeners about that one time where you wound up singing the song for everybody?
No, I don't think so.
So you were going through the ride, right? And something had gone wrong with the audio, and you get to that part where it's like the seeing eye part, and it's what is it like? It's like karaoke where they're showing you what the words are, but no audio is playing.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jake took one for the team and sang it for everybody, not just like our group.
Mm-hmm.
There were like there's like I don't know, a bunch of cars in the room at one time.
Right. You're side by side.
And then were people applauding for you after?
Well, it's because it's hard to sing and follow along if there's no audio.
Yeah.
So everyone was able to follow along because they knew what time it should be in. So that was nice. I was glad to be able to help them because I have been on this stupid ride so many times.
And it's awkward in there. It was awkward with silence.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
You know what I mean? You're everybody's like whispering, like, what's going on? The rest of the audio and the rest of the ride had worked. So it was weird that it was just that one room. So Jake saved the day.
I forgot about that.
How?
Yeah, I don't know. I just haven't thought about it in a while. And that was super weird to have the audio down for one room of the ride.
Mm-hmm.
That is very strange.
I wish I had been recording at that moment because everybody was so thrilled. Like not just our party, like all the other cars were happy about it.
That was fun. I was happy.
Yeah.
That it came to me in the moment, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, we can do this.
Yeah. All right. So I guess I'll just get started.
Yes.
So let me start off with an interesting thing that you probably know.
Okay.
But maybe everybody probably doesn't know because I didn't know. Did you know Figment was supposed to be green?
I didn't know that.
Oh my God.
What?
Yeah, all of the original art has him as being green. And then Kodak, who is the sponsor of Journey into Imagination and the Imagination Pavilion in general. And we've talked about Kodak and their like little kid hate for Fujifilm, like because they wouldn't let Fujifilm wanted to put a roller coaster Fuji roller coaster in the Japan Pavilion in Epcot, and Kodak was like, "No, if they're there, we're not going to be there, right?"
Yeah, that was what it was.
Yeah, seems like a really like elementary like playground kind of crap, you know?
Yeah, who would have known that there was such drama between the sponsors?
And so little kiddish. And so this is the same. He was supposed to be green, and they're like, "Oh no, that's too much like Fujifilm."
What? Are you joking?
No, I'm serious.
Was Fujifilm like they were green branded?
Yes. And Kodak's colors are a red and gold, so it's not even purple.
Right, but they were like, no, that's too close.
No, we don't want him being the same color as Fuji. That's crazy. Yeah, they were green. Yeah. Jake pulled up the color scheme of Fujifilm.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's green.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was a
little
little kid craziness.
That is really interesting. Of course, it's so funny to see what is determined by sponsor. Ship, because like that when we talk about Maelstrom, that was something that happened to them. The country that was sponsoring the pavilion came in and they were like, we want to see this and this and this with the ride. Can you switch it up? It's so interesting to see how much influence they have.
Yes, it is interesting. And this seems so ridiculous to me, but that being said, I love Figment as purple.
Me too.
So I'm happy that it happened.
Me too.
It just seems so crazy.
It is crazy. Figment is like the most whimsical, fantastical thing in Epcot.
Yes.
Because, it wasn't that kind
the
of
icon. Yes.
Right.
And I think a green dragon is so basic.
There are plenty. Yeah.
There are plenty, yeah. And
Right.
I don't know many purple dragons, although Jake's husband just alerted me to Figment's apparent long lost brother that's in like a video game or something.
Yes, Spyro.
Spyro, for those of you who are familiar.
He's a purple dragon from like the 90s.
Yeah,
2000s.
He showed me a picture and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like Figment's brother.
I think Figment came first though, because they were developing him in
80s. Early 80s.
The 80s, yeah.
So yeah.
So he was probably purple before Spyro was even
thought.
Yeah.
Thought up. Okay.
Okay, so that is an interesting fact about Figment.
That was one of the more interesting things that I came across, actually. So anyway, Kodak was going to did sponsor the entire Imagination Pavilion. So when Epcot was in the works to be made, there were a bunch of different pavilions. This one being the Imagination Pavilion. They had the Land Pavilion back then even.
Yeah.
And then a few others that like World of Motion and Horizons and stuff like that.
Right.
I don't remember which of those because that's not what I focused on here. But the Imagination Pavilion was supposed to be an opening day pavilion, and it was. However, the Journey into Imagination did not open with the park because it was a little bit more complicated than they realized that it was going to be. Yeah. And they kind of took their time about starting it in a weird way. The land looked like, if you look at the pictures, it looks like the land was pretty much totally built before they were even like breaking ground on Imagination.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. And if you look at the concept art from what the Imagination Pavilion was originally supposed to be, it was also supposed to be more fanciful, and it would have stood out as like much more elaborate than the others, which I found really interesting. Like, I don't know if that's because Kodak was putting more money into it or whatever. They were planning lots of different shaped glass sculptures, and then they wound up like budget cut last minute changing it to just the two pyramids and then having the water effects that they have, but scale wise it's about the same scale as the other pavilions.
Yeah, I definitely don't get the impression that the Imagination Pavilion now is like way more scaled up than any of the other pavilions.
Yeah,
it's interesting that they planned it to be more elaborate. It would have been cool to have a more fanciful design for the Imagination Pavilion, because I think the concept of the pavilion
it's so Epcot.
Yeah, it's so, well, yes, it's so Epcot, but also stands for more creative design than some of the other ones.
Yeah,
if it's imagination themed, and you're a theme park, that does imaginative architecture, then, that might be cool.
Right.
Although I do think that the version now we have is iconic.
Yes.
The double pyramid, reverse waterfall situation.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. I hope it doesn't change.
No, yeah.
You can change, I guess, what's in it, but don't like change the architecture, I hope.
Oh yeah. I think most people like the double pyramid thing they've got going on now. It's a very pretty building.
Yes. Yes. So that whole pavilion was sponsored by Kodak, but I'm mostly going to be focusing on just the Journey into Your Imagination. Oh, and which opened on March 5th, 1983. Did I already say that? No. So Epcot opened on October 1st, 1982. The Journey into Imagination didn't open until March 5th, 1983. Not too bad.
Not too much later,
as long as you weren't planning. I mean, I don't know if they had said to people that had bought tickets. I don't know how that.
When Epcot was opened, they gave out souvenir kind of programs to people who were there on opening day. I've thought about buying one on eBay.
Oh my gosh, times. How much?
They're not that bad. They're not that bad. Less than $100. Depends on what people are selling them for. But something that was in there were coming attractions, and that was part of it. And so were things that at the time they had planned for the World Showcase Pavilion. So yeah, they were telling people that it was going to be open any day now. I don't think they always knew it was going to be March, whatever.
Yeah, I guess what I meant was I don't know if people who bought tickets for like October knew that they weren't going to get to experience it, or if they didn't care.
Well, I hope not, but I'm jealous of you for being there anyway.
So. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right.
So Dreamfinder describes Figment as 2 tiny wings, eyes big and yellow, horns of a steer, but a lovable fellow. From head to tail, he's royal purple pigment. And there, voila, you've got a Figment.
That is so cute.
So cute. I love that. So the original, the Dreamfinder and Figment as like a duo.
Yes.
This is what we're missing in today's world. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that came from an interesting source, right? So these characters were originally thought up to be part of a land in a completely different state that never came to be. And that was called Discovery Bay. Are you familiar with Discovery Bay?
Yes. Discovery Bay is like one of the more interesting canceled Disneylands because it ended up being highly influential in different parks all over the world.
Yeah, and it was like drawn out. Like,
yes,
they were ready.
Yes, this is Tony Baxter's brainchild.
Yes.
He was like the golden Imagineer of the time in the 80s. Highly influential in the development of Magic Kingdom, but then also in Epcot, and then later in Disneyland Paris. But for the design of Epcot, Tony Baxter was brought on to develop the Land Pavilion. And his plans were like these like greenhouses that were these crystal shapes, and it was going to be this really whimsical kind of tribute to the beauty of natural formation. And then he was moved from that project because they had decided that they were going to go ahead and greenlight the Imagination Pavilion, and they wanted him to design for that. So he started to design for that.
But did any of his land stuff come true? Do you know? Sounds like it based on what you said.
I think like the overall vibe of the Land Pavilion.
Yeah.
It's like how Mary Blair didn't stick on It's a Small World all the way through its completion.
Right.
I think that's the same of the Land Pavilion and Tony
Although
Baxter.
I think we all think of It's a Small World as the Mary Blair ride.
Absolutely. I think the Land and Tony Baxter have a similar thing where he didn't stay till the end, but his ideas from the genesis of the pavilion
sank in.
Probably are, inseparable from the project. But anyway, so he got tasked to work on this Imagination Pavilion, and the original appearance that you were describing earlier, I think, was his probably original concept for what he wanted it to look like prior to the budget cuts that you mentioned.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But things from the Discovery Bay project that he was going to be working on as part of the revitalization of Tomorrowland in Disneyland, those concepts ended up somewhat making it over here as well. With the glass-shaped buildings. Those were originally going to be part of Discoveryland, and a couple of other things.
Discovery Bay.
Discovery Bay.
No, you're fine.
You're right.
Yeah.
The reason I keep confusing them is because when Disneyland Paris opened, instead of doing Tomorrowland, they opened something called Discoveryland.
Yeah.
Which aesthetically is like so close to the original concept art of Discovery Bay,
right?
Because that's where those ideas ended up mostly going, but a couple of them ended up here in the Journey to Imagination Pavilion, including the duo that you're talking about. Right. They had different names. They were going to be Professor Marvel with his marvelous dragon, but he was going to. I'm getting this information, by the way, from Park Lore, which is like an informational fan site that has some really great information. They have an article about Discovery Bay and its impact, and they get into this a little bit. I wanted to refresh myself on this info before talking about it on the podcast. But they write that the kindly, jovial Professor Marvel would have led guests on a tour of his Gallery of Wonders with the help of a playful dragon perched on his shoulder. So that was going to be the original use of Professor Marvel and Figment in the Land Pavilion, but then they ended up kind of getting remixed for when Tony Baxter was assigned instead to the Journey into Imagination Pavilion, and that's how we ended up with them there.
And that's like, is this the concept art from Discovery Bay?
Yeah,
so it's identical to what we have.
Exactly, right.
So that's, fascinating.
So fascinating.
Yeah. That land was going to be a part of Thunder Mountain over there.
Yeah.
Did you see that? So there was like this elaborate story Tony Baxter wanted to get into with why Thunder Mountain, which is interesting because we don't really have a great backstory for Thunder Mountain.
No, there has kind of been one that's been like added a little bit into like the queue and stuff. With charts and maps and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But it kind of just opened as a Frontierland themed
roller
coaster.
Yeah, and they don't really do that. You know what I mean? Most of their rides have these big backstories.
Right.
Yeah, and this land gave Thunder this big backstory that was a little dark. It had like somebody dying. Did you get into this at all?
Not really too much, but I think you did a little bit on a previous episode.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you did kind of cover a little bit of the history there. And we also talked about how Big Thunder Mountain was originally going to be part of a totally separate project called Thunder Mesa, and that was a whole separate thing as well. So it just goes to show you that these ideas go through so much development all the time.
Yeah, right. But jumping back to Journey into Imagination and Figment, Tony, the origin of the name Figment is something from Tony Baxter.
Yes.
And he came up with the name Figment after watching an episode of Magnum P.I. in which a goat has eaten flowers, and one of the characters says, "Don't tell me the goat is a figment of my imagination. Figments don't eat rare tropical flowers." And then Tony Baxter's like, "There's the name of my dragon."
Okay, cool. It's funny where inspiration strikes.
Yeah, and that information made it to somebody who gave it to somebody else who now it's on the internet or whatever.
I know Tony's he's got a book. Maybe it's from that.
It's probably in that.
Perhaps.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't even given that consideration because I haven't read it yet, but definitely.
It's cool that he remembers and, that story has made it to us. Right. I love that.
It seems like the kind of thing that you could potentially not remember, especially that detail. There's the quote.
Right.
This is the quote from Magnum P.I.
Awesome.
Anyway, the voice in the original attraction, Figment, was voiced by Billy Barty. In the version in between, the bad version, that was Corey Burton.
Okay.
And then in the current version, it's Muppet performer Dave Goltz. Did I say that right? Goltz?
I think so.
So that, I didn't know that. You probably knew that. That I thought was very funny that they have a Muppet performer doing Figment.
It definitely makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it totally makes sense.
He's got the skill set.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
Figment also went through kind of an evolution from the first. So in the middle version, there was almost no Figment. I don't even think he had a speaking part, but you would see him every once in a blue moon. In the first one, obviously, he and Dreamfinder were a big part of it. And now in the last one, the one that we have right now, there's Dr. Nigel Channing and Figment. And he's gone through a little bit of a character evolution where in the first one, he had a childlike, like a curiosity and a childlike energy about him.
Yeah.
And now he still has that, but he's a bit of a leader too. You know what I mean? Because in the new version, he's kind of teaching us.
Yes.
Where in the first one, he's asking questions and being silly.
Yeah, he was like a naive, childish, excitable kind of sidekick in the first one. And then the new one, he's a little bit of like the wise fool who teaches you a lesson. Although he's like, all along he's like crazy.
Yeah, right.
Like a zany.
Right.
Yeah.
People say that they feel like the childlike quality has been taken away, but I don't totally feel that way. I definitely think there's still a childlike innocence to Figment, the character, that will always be there.
I agree. I think his character design is also very playful and cute. And I do think he's got he's a little bit more mischievous now than he was.
Yeah.
Now he's like causing trouble.
Right.
He wasn't really like that before.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So the first one had this fun, like I said before, it's like a duo where you've got this childlike character with a childlike curiosity, and then this professor personality.
We should have dressed like them. We have to be them for Halloween or something.
Yeah. Disney bound. Yeah, you're right. But dressing like them would be wild. I wish I had taken more notes about this, but there was a song change right before the ride opened. They originally had somebody else do the song, and it was somebody else that does a lot of songs for Disney. Maybe look it up real quick.
The Sherman Brothers, perhaps?
No, the Sherman Brothers did the one that stuck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I knew they were in there somewhere.
Yeah,
they always
the
are.
one we have now that you're familiar with.
One Little
Spark. That's the Sherman Brothers. There was one before that, but it was just a little it wasn't as catchy. So they canned it at the last minute.
Gotcha.
We'll see if you get any information to come up from that, because I, for some reason, didn't take notes, or I took notes and I lost them about the song, but it was interesting.
Okay.
In 1999 came the terrible change. Apparently, all of the other pavilions had gotten an update between 1982 and 1999, and Kodak was upset that their pavilion had not been updated. So
okay,
they went ahead and made changes, and I don't know who or why they decided to take out the Dreamfinder and to make it so that Figment just had this teeny role in the whole thing, but it was a bad move. No, like nobody liked it. It was crazy. They also, the first version has a feature that you're unaware of as a writer. That's what a carousel. What did you call it? A turntable.
Yeah, that was very cool.
It reminds me of Carousel of Progress, which is why my brain said carousel.
It is like that.
Yes, it is just like that. So this was a continuously moving ride where you were boarding it while it was still moving, and then you wind up like facing a stage and you're still moving, and the Dreamfinder looks like it's moving, but you don't feel like you're moving because it's right in front of you also moving. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Ugh, so hard to explain.
Your vehicle's like locked into place.
Yes.
So you're in these separate kind of quads.
Just like Carousel of Progress. So
you're all viewing,
yes,
the same things. You're just kind of in your own little audience section.
Right.
It's just like Carousel of Progress.
It is just like that. So that's the best way I can explain it.
I think that was a really cool implementation of that technology.
Yeah.
Disney loved to do this thing where they either introduce or break up the ride path with some kind of multimedia room. They did this in Delta Dream Flight, where you go into the projection room. I love it when they did this in Journey into Inner Space. I love when they do that because it's like telling the story in all these different kind of media sensations, and this was a great example of it. And it's also one of the only things that you can still see the remnants of from the old ride today. I don't know if you were going to get into that.
No, I wasn't. I didn't know you could still see the I knew that they took it away, and I'm like, why?
I know. And
they basically made floor over it.
Literally.
Yeah.
Now, the way that they've reconfigured it is that the What If Labs used to be upstairs.
Right.
And the queue that we have now was basically part of the ride. But so they turned, and what also used to be part of the ride is where the What If Labs are now.
Right.
That was all ride. And what that actually was the turntable room.
Right, okay.
So if you look up, when you're in there, you can see the curved,
in the ride?
In the What If Labs.
Okay.
After the ride. If you look up to the ceiling, you can see the curved slope on the ceiling where the original turntable kind of like mechanism was.
Interesting.
And you can see kind of the metal support for what that used to be. And it's really one of the only ways you can even tell that the turntable used to be in that room.
Yeah.
I think next time we go, I'll point out.
Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. So
look for curves up there.
Right. So yeah, it used to be a 2-story thing.
Yeah.
That was going on, and yeah.
It was complicated. I see why they needed the extra couple months to get it figured out.
I don't really understand why they decided to basically downgrade.
Right.
As a refurbishment. That doesn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to anybody else either. 24 months after, so it was when they redid it in 1999. They also renamed it Journey into Your Imagination.
Right.
But they put the your up above, like it was an afterthought or like an add-in. Journey into Your Imagination. And then nothing about Figment. Figment was basically not in it. There's no Dreamfinder at all. People were like going to customer service on a daily. They were fielding complaint.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it only lasted for 24 months before they were like, this is not working. People are just more mad about doing this than than if we had nothing. So we're going to shut it down and try to figure out something else.
It's crazy. It's one of the biggest swings and misses. I know we've talked about successful and not successful attraction overhauls on this show a little bit.
Yeah.
This one always comes up because of how much negative reception it received from guests when it opened.
Right.
Rarely do they misstep so
egregiously. I can't even wrap my head. Usually I can kind of see somebody's point of view with a decision, but I don't see how this did anything.
Right.
Because Kodak wanted an upgrade. Well, this isn't an upgrade. This is a downgrade. I just don't see how anybody was happy. Kodak could not have been happy about this. I can't imagine why they felt the need to take these characters away.
I think perhaps it may have been expensive to operate such a complicated
they spent
ride.
Money to change it, though, like a lot of money.
That's very true.
I just can't wrap my head around it. It's whatever. Nobody liked it. They changed it. So now, what it is now, they brought back Figment, but not Dreamfinder.
Right.
And then this was during the wild success of Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. So I guess maybe Kodak was okay because they had that.
Which was in the same pavilion.
Same pavilion, same sponsorship.
Right.
Right. And that was doing phenomenally.
Yeah, it was a big success because I think maybe in the grand scheme of things, that movie doesn't come up very much now anymore.
Right.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and its sequels. But at the time, it was all the rage.
Yes.
You know, it was box office record breaking and everyone was going to see
There
them.
were, multiple of these movies that were coming out and doing fantastically.
And it made its way into multiple Disney parks.
Yes.
In MGM, it had a playground.
Yes.
In Epcot, it got this 3D, 4D experience to replace Captain EO, which was on its way out at the time. And the runaway success, I see why they wanted to capitalize on that licensing.
So then to tie in this successful ride with the Journey into Your Imagination ride, they added Dr. Nigel Channing, who is part of the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. He is a British comedian known for a bunch of stuff, but he is
Monty Python.
Yes, he is the host of Honey, I Shrunk the Audience as this character, Dr. Nigel Channing. So they brought him into the current one.
Right.
So there is some of a collaboration or a duo, I guess, between Dr. Nigel Channing and Figment, but it's not the same as what we had with Dreamfinder. People like this ride better than the second one, obviously, but I would say it's not a hit like the first one was. I don't know if you have anything about that. Any thoughts?
In terms of popularity?
Yeah.
Journey into...
Or what you think is wrong.
With the current one?
Yeah.
The popularity of the first one, it's really actually... This type of thing is difficult to discuss because the ride was very popular when it first opened, but it did experience a lapse in popularity toward the end of its life. And this happens with most classic Disney attractions that people wish were still around, like Horizon.
Yes.
The Great Movie Ride. Things that are masterworks of Imagineering, but then...
Well, was the Great Movie Ride because of the Turner Classic Movies collaboration falling through?
Oh, was that the reason for its closure?
Yeah,
probably.
I think that one was more that than not having a line. But go on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if they're not getting money in to keep it running, then there's a lot less of the desire to do that if it's complicated.
Or if they were having issues with copyright or whatever with the movies that they had in there. But for this one, yes, the lines had gotten low for this ride.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say that they should have left it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The challenge then is what to do with it.
Right.
So they ended up going a route that most people did not appreciate because they kept the title so similar, but in the reworking, I think in a Pavilion About Imagination, they took a lot of the whimsy out of the experience. And there still is whimsy in it in some ways with optical illusions. Yeah. Or, I mean, most of what is in the ride today is from that initial overhaul. They just kind of rearranged some story elements, added more Figment back into the equation.
Yeah.
But things like the butterfly, optical illusion, and stuff like that, that's all from that first overhaul. And I think where we've gone wrong today is definitely taking a fanciful view of imagination, and instead they've gone kind of in this confined narrative where you go through this typical dark ride kind of experience that isn't of the wow factor that you really expect from a Disney attraction. So I think, that's a downgrade. It seems like the original Journey into Imagination ride sounds complicated to run.
Yes, I agree.
Because of the turntable, because of the ride track and the involved mechanics. So this one probably is more cost efficient to operate.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the cause behind all of it in the first place.
Right.
But it is sad to see, such an expanded story go, because now it's hard for me to imagine that we will ever get an original concept attraction of that scale of the first one ever.
No, again. They're going to keep using things that are in movies and stuff like that. I agree. The issue I take with the revamp was when a ride is doing really poorly, like if they're not attracting lines and stuff like that, then you've got the option to either plus it up, like do a refresh, or just replace it with something different. But they chose neither of those.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like you could have plussed it up with some new technology in 1999 that could have involved some, I don't know, screens, maybe adding a 3D effects or something. I don't know, but they chose to downgrade it and take away the characters. And we love the IP, that Figment is a parks character. Yeah. Designed for the parks.
Yeah, that's a unique situation.
It is.
To be in. It's very rare to have an original Disney parks character nowadays.
Yeah.
And we love that about him.
We do.
That he's from the imagination of an Imagineer, and that he was designed originally for a different Epcot pavilion, but for Epcot. And I think that's why he's such a good mascot for Epcot.
Yeah.
Because he's part of the original DNA.
Yeah. So I'm going to get into a few other things that Figment, the character, has done. That's all I've got on the ride. Yeah. Do you have anything else on the ride?
No, I think that's where we're at now. Is with the, the most current version being unpopular and people wanting it to change, but its history being a much talked about kind of thing. Yeah.
So places that you see Figment outside of the ride is what I'm going to get into real quick. Just a little fun deviation.
Awesome.
So in 2014, Marvel Comic made a bunch of comics called Disney Kingdoms, and there was a 5-issue miniseries focused on the origins of Figment and Dreamfinder. It, like, saying he was born in 1910 and it takes place in London. And I haven't read it yet or seen the comics, but I'm very excited to. We talked about getting them so that I can after I found out about this. Another huge thing over the past couple years has been Figment popcorn buckets.
Oh, yeah.
People waited as long as 7 hours for a Figment popcorn bucket the first time they released one.
I remember seeing video of those crazy lines, people waiting. Yeah. They were backed up all the way to the World Showcase waiting for a Figment popcorn bucket.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
And then people selling them for $100 on eBay.
I guess that would be, making thousands of dollars is the only reason you'd want to stand in line for 7 hours.
Yeah, well, I hope they're wearing sunscreen.
So in October 2024, it was revealed that Figment will make his first overseas debut with a modified Figment popcorn bucket from the famous 2022 Epcot International Festival of the Arts popcorn bucket. Yeah. And it will be available at Shanghai.
Oh, okay. Weird.
Very curious to see if people in Shanghai are interested at all in Figment, because
they might be.
In the Asia Disney market, they are like super fans of Duffy.
Yeah.
And we don't even know who that is over here.
Not really,
you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we know a little because this is what we do.
And we see people go to the Asia parks.
Yes. But that's it. They don't sell any of that stuff here. No. I don't know anything about that character.
It seems right that any day now we'll get the Duffy Disney Plus short or something.
Yeah.
Why don't we know?
Yeah. But Duffy is so popular over there that they had to make like virtual queues to buy merch when they put new merch out for him, which is really what they'll have to start doing if they keep releasing these popcorn buckets that generate a 7-hour wait. I'm sure they didn't know that was going to happen when it happened.
No, and then that one saw a crazy level of popularity.
Yes. And then last year there was a new one that had the whole Imagination Pavilion as a popcorn bucket with Figment in it. So interesting.
That one is really cool.
It's very cool looking. I don't understand. I haven't bought it. I haven't used it. So I don't, from where I've seen it, which is people passing and in pictures, I don't really understand how it's a popcorn bucket.
I think that's a lot about the popcorn bucket.
Or how it's a good popcorn bucket. How much popcorn do you hold?
Probably not a lot.
Imagination Pavilion in the form of a popcorn bucket. But it's very cool looking. I would buy it just to put on a shelf.
I know. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, this probably does not... Oh, it's got a little rainbow inside.
Yes, it's beautiful. But
Figments on the rainbow.
There was never not a line for it. So we never went to go buy it.
It does have a flat bottom though, so you really can just stick it on a shelf.
And I would probably even cut the
lanyard.
Yeah, the strap. Yeah,
the strap thing.
Because look how beautiful.
Yeah, it is really super cute.
I bet some people have done some really creative things with what they put in there. You could put some like fairy lights in there. Oh my god.
Yeah, people are doing that.
Of course.
Very cute.
Anyway, so this is you might like this. You might be totally aware of this. What? I don't know if we've gone during the holiday season the last 2 years, but over the last 2 years, in 2 scenes, they put a holiday sweater on Figment in the ride. So that is Walt Disney World's holiday overlay, you guys.
That's so true.
Yay!
I know it's not much, but it's all we have.
It's all we have.
Yeah, I know.
And I joke. If you're new to us, we're constantly complaining, or more so me, but about the lack of Christmas overlays in Walt Disney World.
I am too. I would like to see some more.
Yeah. They don't do a good job. They do a great job over in Disneyland.
They do. They have a lot. They have a lot.
Anyway.
I do love his sweater though.
Yeah.
It's like a knit sweater with the original ride Pavilion logo for the Imagination Pavilion. And that kind of fan service goes a long way with me. I can't lie.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
They now sell the sweater.
Yes.
So you can wear the sweater.
The character, I posted this on Instagram during the holiday season of 2024. The statue, there are a couple statues that I think are from the original ride.
Yeah.
Can I not take notes on this? And they will show up in random places like in the shop or whatever. And there was one with the holiday sweater this year where they were selling all the Christmas stuff in Creations
shop.
Yes. As far as some Figment Easter eggs, he has been a cameo in Inside Out and Toy Story 4.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know he was in Toy Story 4.
Yeah, he's like they go to a carnival. And it's like a dragon carnival game.
Oh, cool. Yeah, he's in the Dragon Zone
Zone. Yeah.
Very cool.
Little Easter egg, though. But very cool that our beloved Epcot mascot is making his way into some major motion pictures.
I know.
Yeah.
He's featured on a portrait that's on the ground and Inside Out in their Imagination Land.
Yes.
Which is a very fitting place for him to be.
Perfect. He also is in Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout in Disneyland as one of the collector's collections. Amazing.
Yes. He's up there. So in that ride, they're all in the queue. All of the things that the collector owns are in these crates. Let's say crates. And they've got fogged
cages,
glass.
Yeah.
They're cages.
But with windows, yeah.
So he's in a suspended one, and if you look through the fog, you can kind of see him up there.
Yeah, and I don't know whether I should be happy or sad. He's definitely trapped.
It makes me feel so bad for him. I'm like, oh, he's in permanent timeout up there.
God.
Oh my God, somebody has uploaded a video to YouTube.
This says free.
And it's him in the, I almost said prison cell. Well, it's him in the crate, and the caption is a big red, free him text, which is how I feel. So, okay, we're not alone.
All right.
Those are really cool little cameos for him. Anything else?
Well, in the future, we have a live action film centered around Figment, and it's currently in development. So we've been told for a couple of years, with Seth Rogen producing under his Point Grey Pictures banner. They have, I think they've got, I don't think they've announced voices yet.
Right.
But supposedly.
Yeah, that would be really, I wonder what they're going to do with the story.
I wonder how it'll affect the ride.
Is Seth Rogen going to play Dreamfinder in this, do you think?
Which I was worried about. I know you've heard me express concern about this because he's been in a lot of movies that aren't my cup of tea. But I just saw Mufasa yesterday or the day before.
How was it?
It was fantastic.
Wow, okay.
And
he's in it.
He's in it as Pumbaa. So he does a great job.
Yeah, he and Billy Eichner were my favorite
But things. I loved him before.
Same. They were my favorite things about the original, about the Lion King remake.
Yes. Mufasa is so much better than the Lion King remake.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm definitely going to see it.
You can stream it for sure.
Well, now that Seth Rogen is kind of dipping his toe into the Disney, bubble, and it's clear that he had a lot of appreciation for the Lion King. He turned out a great performance in that movie. Yeah, I'm thinking hopefully that maybe he will, his production company will
keep it classy.
pay a nice homage to.
Figment. Yes, my concern is like with the ride where they added the skunk thing.
Right.
That you could go the juvenile jokester route.
Right.
In a way that I don't love. That's cheap. Let's call it cheap humor. Cheap juvenile humor, which. Of course, there's going to be some of that, but you can do that in like a fun, funny for everybody way, like with Timon and Pumbaa.
Yes.
Timon and Pumbaa are exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're funny for adults. They're funny for children with a little bit of fart humor, but not like that's all it is.
I agree.
I'm hoping that he doesn't turn Figment into a big fart joke.
That is my hope. Same. Exactly same. That's my hope too.
Yeah.
I would much rather see it be like a tribute to the human imagination.
Yes.
That would be beautiful.
Right.
Since that's what this whole thing is supposed to be.
I want a definite story.
Right. I would love to see Dreamfinder. I would love to see, obviously, the song is going to be a big part of this, I'm assuming.
Did you find the first song? It was such a small amount of time. Yeah.
No.
I will find it and play it for you after. It's cool. You guys can look it up, or we can link it or something like that.
Absolutely.
Maybe I can even, how long can we play? We can play like 5 seconds. Oh, great.
Or something.
Insert audio here. Ooh. If we wind up finding it and can do that. But anyway,
if not, check our Instagram. Never Late After.
Yeah, this song, when you hear it, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's not One Little Spark." You know what I mean?
I'm excited to hear it. It's funny that it did go through. It went through such transformations. I've seen some concept art of the ride before it was produced in its original version, where there were some parts of the imagination that they didn't end up exploring in the final version of the ride, which is crazy because when you look at the ride layout and you see how many different, rooms that you're going through and how many themes they're exploring, it's crazy to think that they had more planned. Because just as a reminder, in the beginning, they had the pre-show, the Dreamport dock, the Dreamport, the arts, literature, performing arts, science and technology, image technology, and then the load unload. You covered all of that in the first ride, which is quite the breadth of quite the breadth of information to get through in the Stark ride. It reminds me a lot of those early Epcot rides where you go through a lot of different scene changes and stuff by the time you get to the end. Spaceship Earth, Horizons, World of Motion. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how it's evolved in such a major way.
Yeah. So that pretty much covers the history.
Wow, there's a lot, and Figment has ended up in some really interesting. When the Disney Channel was first being developed as a premium cable TV add-on, they had originally planned an educational series with Figment.
Oh, I did not come across that information.
And
Fascinating.
that was going to be the first time he was kind of debuted to the American art audience at large outside of Epcot.
That had never made it to a Disney park, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not a Disney park, this specific Disney park.
I know,
yeah.
right? This one in Florida.
I wonder if people even knew who he was.
I don't think
now,
so.
if you haven't been to Disney World, do you know him?
I don't know. Maybe they've seen him on t-shirts.
Oh, they just made a little golden book. I bought it for my nephew. Oh, it's so cute.
I love a little golden book.
Yes.
But he was going to be in one of those. That TV series never ended up making it to the Disney Channel, and its history is the subject of many.
I wonder why not.
It was that exact question. What happened to that show is the subject of a lot of curious people's interest. Because there are a couple of episodes of it that have leaked onto the internet where you can see.
Oh my gosh, they went that far.
Yeah.
Look how cute this book is.
Oh, that is so. Oh, I remember they were selling that at Epcot.
Yes.
Yeah, that is really cute.
Yeah, I got it for Baker. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyway, go on.
Really cute. No, that's it. It was gonna be a Disney Channel thing.
Actually filmed some of it. Filmed?
Yes,
drew.
Filmed. They went through production. It was
so was it a puppet?
Puppet? Maybe Figment was animated. Figment Disney Channel.
Mary Poppins, where there's a human person and...
Right. So this is fully animated.
Okay.
Disney made an educational series called Yeah, there's actually... Oh, this is the one that I think I've seen. So this was actually fully animated, but it had these live... Okay, now I remember what it was. It's the whole video is coming back to me. There are these people and they're doing like a skit, basically, of some kind. And then Figment flies in, like the penguins in Mary Poppins or something. Yeah. And he like takes them into an imaginative kind of cartoon world. And then it's cartoon. So it's part live action, part animation. Anyway, sorry.
They do a much better job drawing him than making statues of him, I will say.
Yeah.
The statues are always a bit creepy, but the drawings are always so cute.
He is so cute.
Maybe they were worried about competing with Barney. Aww. Maybe it was like another purple dinosaur kind of situation.
How does Barney configure in?
I don't know. I don't know how old Barney is. It was definitely from when I was a kid, right? So 80s.
Right. So around probably the same time.
When did... Let's find out.
Yeah, the show was called Dreamfinders, and it's considered to be lost media.
Oh, Barney came out in 92.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, so they were probably developing him in the 80s.
Yeah, but that should not have interfered with a show that was supposed to come out in 88, I think the last thing said.
Oh, the Disney Channel thing? 83.
83?
Yeah.
So he had just gotten his ride.
Yeah, he had just gotten his ride.
Wow, that's quick moving.
Yeah, they really were. They were thinking that he was bankable, huh?
Yeah, well, I think he is bankable.
He is. I mean, look at his longevity. He's still selling popcorn buckets for 8 hours at a time. Good for Figment. I think Figment will continue to be a huge presence in Epcot as long as Epcot is a thing.
Yeah. Oh, I think so too. I'm Disney in general.
Which I love.
I love it too.
I hope he sticks around.
Yeah.
He just got a meet and greet.
Like it or not.
And Morgan does not.
I think he looks creepy.
Yeah, his character design's a little crazy.
They did talk about turning... There were rumors that they were going to turn the entire Journey into Imagination ride into an Inside Out ride.
Yeah.
Not that long ago, but instead they just added the meet and greet with joy and sadness. Mm-hmm. I still wouldn't be... I would be surprised... No, okay. Here's what I think happen. Final answer. They incorporate Figment into Inside Out 3
Really?
Well,
that would be cool.
He's a figment of imagination.
I would totally. It would make perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and they're in Riley's brain, so it makes sense.
What a crossover!
To use Bing Bong instead of Figment, really, I feel like. Anyway, they could do a collaboration and then change the ride. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, eventually, like 20 years from now.
I like it. I
don't hate it either.
Of all of the things that could happen, I think if Figment pops up in, an Inside Out movie, or there's some type of collab short or whatever, and that ends up being the collaboration that sparks a really good refresh of the ride, I'd be totally happy.
Yeah, me too.
Or if the movie is a runaway success somehow.
Yeah.
That would be cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks for taking us through the history. I thought that was super fascinating.
Yeah,
I did learn many things that I did not know, which is always
good.
Which is always fun. And I hope you guys learned something too. Do y'all know Figment was green at first? That's crazy. If you guys would like to hear more adventures from Disney's history and past and all kinds of stuff, you can visit us as well on our social media on Instagram and TikTok at Neverland Navco.
Yes, we also have an Etsy shop called Neverland Navigation on Etsy. You can search that, where we do dish towels or t-shirts or sweatshirts, and you just send me a message and let me know what your favorite ride is. If you want some you can say Figment's my favorite character, what can you do? Mm-hmm. I send you design options, and then we go from there. Also, that's where you get your free trip shirts from if you book a trip with me by emailing me at neverlandnavigationco@gmail.com.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we've got some new dreams to imagine up, so we will see you
on our next adventure.
Goodbye.
Bye.
One little spark, of inspiration.